Hello friends, this is Worm, and today I wanted to talk about crouch shooting in Destiny 2 and a potential fix that I actually saw from another game, xDefiant, we'll talk about that in a second, to crouch shooting. So first of all, before we go into this, I think we should talk about what crouch shooting actually is, because I think there's probably some of y'all out there who don't know what it is. But crouch shooting is basically the implementation of crouching rapidly while you are in a gunfight. So literally you walk into a fight and you start spamming your crouch button while you're shooting at an enemy. And the purpose of crouch shooting is, of course, to reduce your enemy's ability to hit their crits. Of course, crits very important in Destiny 2. And of course, whenever you're crouching, going up and down, rapid movements like that, it's much more difficult to hit crits. That's what crouch shooting is. It's definitely more prevalent on PC than it is on console. I don't play console, but I have watched console gameplay and stuff. I really don't see crouch shooting happening all that much on consoles, probably for the limitation of controllers, which we'll probably talk about in a little bit anyways, but that's what crouch shooting is. And of course it is prevalent in Destiny 2, just like basically most other PvP shooters nowadays. Now, let's talk about xDefiant for a second, because xDefiant has just implemented a change, or they're currently in the process of implementing a change. Let me point this out. I don't play xDefiant. I've watched gameplay for it. I have seen people play it, but I have never played the game myself. Okay, this is like, I'm going off of what I've seen on social media and stuff like that. So, don't crucify me saying I've never played it. I admit I have never played it. But with that out of the way, xDefiant has implemented a system to penalize players for crouch shooting, but not in the penalty way that most Destiny 2 players think. Of course, as a Destiny 2 player, when I think of a penalty, I think of quitter penalties. A 30-minute ban from the Crucible, from Trials of Osiris. Those are not fun. Okay, let's get that out of the way. Bungie did that a couple months ago, or maybe a year ago. Might have been more than a year, where you would get a 30-minute ban for leaving a Crucible game. That is ridiculous. I hated that. I've said it before. Not a fan of that. That needed to go, and they did change it. They removed that, which is a good thing. But xDefiant, they didn't go with that style of penalty. Okay, instead they went with an in-game penalty to your actual accuracy while you're crouch shooting, or while you're aiming down sights and you're spamming your crouch button, or attempting to crouch shoot. Your idle sway greatly increases. And if I can find the clips, I'll put them on screen so you can kind of watch what I'm talking about here. But it greatly increases your idle sway to a point where, again, I would assume that maintaining control over that is ridiculously difficult. And this is because the developers at xDefiant said that they felt like crouch shooting really, it sucks the fun and the realism out of the game. And of course, again, xDefiant probably a little bit more of a realistic shooter than Destiny 2, but I think that it could work. We'll talk about realism in Destiny 2 and blah blah stuff in just a second. But that's the reason why they're implementing it in their game. Now, let's talk about Destiny 2 for a second, because like I said, Destiny 2 does have I don't want to say a prominent crouch shooting problem, because it's not something that I'm running into literally every single day, every single game or anything like that. Once every couple games, you will come across somebody who spams their crouch button while they are shooting. And I'll say this, I don't have a problem with anybody's playstyle. If you want to, if it's in the game, use it to your advantage. And Bungie is very much this exact same way. If there's a glitch or an exploit it. As long as it's in the game, that's their problem. That's their thing that they need to fix, right? So I'm kind of the same way. I'm like, if you want to 3-peek around corners, go ahead, right? It's disabled where it matters in trials and stuff like that. But if you want to 3-peek, that's fine. I don't have a problem with that. If you want to crouch shoot, I'm fine. I don't have a problem with that. But I will say this, there is an annoyance to crouch shooting that I personally have, where it feels like it breaks realism of the game. Now, again, this is where, I know some nerd's gonna come in here and say, well, actually, Destiny is not even a real game. It's not even realistic. Listen, the reason we all play Destiny is because it is a really good looking game. It's got great flow to it. I mean, if you're in here playing PvP constantly and regularly, the reason you're playing PvP is because it's fun. It has that flow to it that just feels so good. It is a good looking game. I mean, let's be honest, the graphics of Destiny 2 are probably one of the best I've ever seen in terms of, sci-fi shooters. Okay, but when you have these games and you're winning duels, you're losing duels, and it's like, yeah, it's fun and all this, then all of a sudden you have a Guardian coming through and they're spamming at like 100 crouches per minute, which is ridiculously fast. It kind of breaks that little realism. And I don't really like the feeling of that realism being broken. Now, of course, I can combat crouch shooting. I actually know the secret technique, so to speak, to counter crouch shooting, which is just use 300 rounds per minute sidearms and aim for about right here on the chest. Fun fact for you. But at the same time, like, it's still like, it feels like it kind of ruins like an experience, you know, and it doesn't ruin it to the point where I'm done playing or anything like that. But it would be nice to not see it happen quite as much. Again, as long as it's in the game, abuse it. You know, I've said that a million times, but that's kind of where I'm at with crouch shooting inside of Destiny 2. Now, you know, xDefiant, like I said, the way they do it is they make your weapon have a ton of idle sway. And one of the reasons why I maybe think this couldn't work in Destiny 2 is because Destiny 2 doesn't have idle sway on any of its weapons. I mean, even sniper rifles. When you ADS with a sniper rifle, you aim right at head level, because as soon as somebody walks around the corner, you pull the trigger, you're gonna pick that kill. You don't have to worry about holding your breath or any business like that. Like, it is a perfectly, you know, it holds perfectly still. And so since Destiny doesn't have any sort of idle sway, maybe that could, you know, maybe this idea of idle sway couldn't work, but I think Bungie could probably implement something like that inside of Destiny 2. But again, I think that it would be beneficial, because number one, like I said, that feeling of realism and that flow of the battle, like, it just, you get in the moment. And I can't pinpoint the exact like what I'm talking about, but y'all know what I'm talking about. You're having a really fun session. You have some games where you're doing really well. You have some games where you're doing not so well. You're frustrated. Then you have a game where you're really popping off. But then out of nowhere, there comes the one Guardian that's kind of just feels like they're trying to ruin it for everybody. You know, same thing in strikes. You're running through strikes, you're having fun, and then you got the one Guardian that's trying to troll and be dumb and, you know, eager edge you off the map, stuff like that. Like, it breaks up that flow. That's one of the reasons why I want to see it change. But the other reason is because of input limitations. Now, let me precurse this by saying I am well aware there are substantial input limitations on both sides. Okay, I hear it all the time. Mouse and keyboard players, they complain, oh, it's not fair because, like, controller players get aim assistance. And then controller players sit here and say, oh, it's not fair because I can't flick on M and K and I can't, you know, hit all these buttons at the same time, blah, blah. Like, you're never going to have a perfectly balanced environment. And Destiny 2 will never have a perfectly balanced environment unless Bungie literally splits lobbies based on whether your input is controller or mouse and keyboard, right? And I don't think, they're probably not ever going to do that. Okay, they're going to keep it PC versus console, right? But you know, that being said, there are limitations that you can't correct. But I think that crouch shooting is one of those things that, like, on PC, like, I don't want to say you can't do it on Xbox or on a controller, but it's very difficult to do on a controller. I know on my controller, which I have right here, I can't do it on this thing. Okay, believe me, I've tried. Maybe if I had a what's it called, the Xbox One Elite controller, I could do it with that. But again, I'm not about to spend 120 bucks on a controller that's going to break in a couple months because I use it so much. Sorry, tangent, but let's get back on target. Players, like, whenever it comes to mouse and keyboard versus controller, especially if you're going to have mixed lobbies, you're going to have players that can play on mouse and keyboard and controller. I feel like Bungie should try to balance that out as much as possible. Crouch shooting is one of those things you could eliminate it from the game, and first of all, like, maybe 15% of the population is going to notice or care, because that's all the people that are doing it. But also, it kind of, again, it helps level that playing field. Again, there are inherent benefits to using both. Aim assistance, flicks, stuff like that. But you know, one thing that you absolutely, like, can't do on a controller is spam your crouch button while you're shooting. Okay, well, I'm not gonna say you can't do it, but it's very difficult to do. So again, leveling out that playing field so that it's a little bit more balanced. Again, I think that in a perfect situation, the only real difference between controller and M&K is basically the ability to flick and have very little to no recoil on M&K, and then aim assistance on controller. Aim assistance, in my opinion, is a huge factor. It's a huge factor in most of my gunfights. Like, I feel that aim assistance, especially on 300 round per minute sidearms. That's why I use them so much. Aim assistance really pulls those crits in. And I know that, like, I know it's frustrating because people, you know, they know that I play on control and they say that's cheap, like I should play on M&K like everybody else, and, you know, level the playing field, blah blah, whatever. You know, aim assistance or flicks and low recoil. Like, I think that's the balancing factor. I don't think that crouch shooting is something that should be a balancing factor here, but I don't know, that's just my opinions. I like the way that xDefiant handled it. I think that, you know, the penalty that you have, and it's literally, it's not for the whole game, it's only when you're actively trying to crouch spam, right? And you could even write in that the realness factor is like, if you actually are trying to go up and down while you're aiming down sights with a weapon, you're gonna make yourself dizzy. Like, you know, you could write that in there too. But I don't know. That's kind of all I wanted to talk about today was, you know, crouch shooting and potentially maybe a way Bungie could counter it. And again, I got this idea from xDefiant. This is not my own original idea or anything like that. But yeah, with that being said, I want to hear your thoughts on everything that we've talked about here. Crouch shooting, xDefiance's, you know, penalty. How would you feel about it being in Destiny? Blah, blah, blah. Tell me all that stuff in the comments. Of course, if you like today's video, drop a like, helps the channel out a lot. Subscribe for more daily Destiny content. And guys, do me a favor, watch the videos you see here on the end screen, because for whatever reason, YouTube thinks you'll like them. We'll see y'all in the next one. Bye for now.